I got involved with Friends of the Caw in 1995 because my husband had gotten involved, and I'm a water person. I love the water. I love recreating on the water. So I joined Friends of the Caw. I helped them write their bylaws, start their board of directors. I was their first secretary. I was president for 4 years. I was the past president for a year or two, and then I decided to apply for the riverkeeper job in 2003. Well, Mike was a powerful force. He loved Friends of the Caw. He got started early on, and he helped organize these mammoth float trips from the Perry Dam here to Riverfront Park, and we would do that on a Saturday and Sunday. I think, we would have maybe 150 boats a day coming down the river, lots of people, so it was a big deal. So he worked on those. He was vice president of the Friends of the Caw. He did go and he helped to lobby, got a bill submitted to the Kansas legislature as a moratorium on sand dredging for this part of the river until they could study it. And it passed in the Senate, but it did not pass in the House. So he did that, and then he got into building boat ramps. So the first boat ramp he built was in St. George, Kansas. We got a small grant, a $2,000 grant, and so he worked with the city of St. George. He got the mayor and the city council on board. And then, so he would go and get the plans made. He was a master at getting volunteers and getting materials donated. So he built several ramps there, DeSoto, Edwardsville, Caw Point, and then he was hired by Kansas Department of Parks and Wildlife to help to build boat ramps. The Kansas River is a wonderful river for novices and families because it doesn't run very fast. I mean, at low water, you can't go on it when it's flood stage, but, that's an opportunity this part of Kansas didn't really have. They'd have to go down to the Ozarks or go somewhere else to canoe. So getting canoeing on the river was great, and it's also really a good economic driver for all the little towns along the Caw. So we got a lot of support. We got a great support from Governor Brownback, and Sebelius gave us good support. Well, I was the riverkeeper from 2003 to 2015. There was Dave Murphy, and after he left, well, I went to the Waterkeeper Alliance conference, and Captain Bill goes, "You should be the next riverkeeper. You should be the next river." And I was like, "I'm an interior decorator. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a scientist." And he goes, "I don't care. You care." So I thought, well, okay, I'll give it a whirl. We can use the trade name Kansas Riverkeeper because we're a member of the Waterkeepers Alliance. You can't use Riverkeeper unless you're a member of the Waterkeepers Alliance. So I went to all their conventions and met a lot of people, got a lot of help from them. So yeah, it was a great experience. It was a great job. It was probably my main task was really building Friends of the Caw because we were a baby organization. I was a paid employee, so I had to make sure that there was money in the bank to pay my salary. And so I was very involved with how much money we had in the bank. And Friends of the Caw always paid me. We always something would pop in so that we would have enough money. And our big issue was the sand dredging. And we wanted to get the companies that dredge sand on the river to move to pit mines. That was our goal. And when I started, there were 22 permits to dredge sand on the river. There weren't that many dredges, but there were quite a few. And now there's, I think, 7 or 8. And maybe 3 or 4 dredges on the river. So we have made a lot of progress. And we moved, several companies moved off the river, which was very good news. The companies that dredge on the river, they have a suction and a machine that goes down and it kind of augers a hole in the bottom of the river, and then they suck the sand out, they sort it, and then they sell it. Now, some companies sell it for asphalt or for concrete. And apparently Kansas River sand is one of the best sands to make that product. They also use it for fiberglass and for sandboxes and for building homes. So, I mean, Kansas sand goes all over the Midwest. So, and the reason was, in the beginning, they didn't even have to pay anything to take that sand out of the river. And they finally had to start paying, I think it was 11 cents a ton to take sand out of the river. Now, when the dredges auger that hole in the river naturally wants to fix that hole. So it starts pulling sand, dirt, clay from upstream to fill that hole. And so what happens, the upstream's bank starts to collapse and fall in. So that's the big reason why we wanted the dredgers off the river. A river keeper is kind of a mixed, you have a lot of duties. You're a PR person. You have to learn legal stuff, science stuff. You run an organization, so you have to understand your website, do social media. And yeah, so when I retired from the riverkeeper job in 2015, I think we had about 15 people apply. And I was lucky enough to be able to go through the applications, and Dawn was my first pick. So I was very, very happy when she was appointed, and she has done a fabulous job. I'm just so pleased with where she's taken Friends of the Caw. Well, I just love to get out into nature, and it's very calm and peaceful on the Kansas River. During the winter, I float maybe once or twice a month when the temperature's a little high and it's not too windy. And then spring, summer, and fall, I'll float quite a bit. Maybe once every 2 weeks. We'll also do a lot of camping on the Kansas River. My most favorite memory was the first time I paddled on the Caw. And my husband had just bought me a kayak. So we put in up below Lake Perry and floated to Riverfront Park. And that took quite a while, but we came in at dusk. And I mean, the sunset was spectacular. Peaches, oranges, a lot of lavenders and purples. It was just beautiful. And we got out, and then we went to dinner with Lance Burr and Patty Boyer that we didn't know very well, but we became very good friends with them. So it was just a lovely day. My most proud accomplishment was in 2012 when the Kansas River was named the National River Trail. That was really the highlight of my time. My husband Mike had worked to build, he built about 10 access ramps on the river. So it started with only 3 access ramps on the Kansas River. Really, it was a forgotten river. Very few people floated on it. And but after we get all those access ramps on, now its recreation has increased, I'd say, 1,000%. Yeah, and it's amazing. From Junction City to Bellevue, there's 6 ramps, and that area is heavily used, as is from Lawrence to Kansas City. Before Friends of the Caw, people could just dump stuff in the river and nobody knew about it. Nobody really cared. So, but Friends of the Caw changed that. You know, if we got we have a hotline, and so people could call that hotline and tell us if they suspected pollution or if they saw dumping. And I got calls from that, and if I needed to, I'd get in a plane and fly over the river and take pictures and then turn it in to. I worked with Kansas Department of Health and Environment, the EPA, and the Corps of Engineers. Those were the 3 governmental agencies that kind of worked on the river. Well, I think that Friends of the Caw will continue to promote recreation on the Kansas River. Hopefully we can get that section open from Bellevue to Topeka. And I also think Friends of the Caw will be working on the water quality because there's a lot of phosphates and nitrates that go into the Kansas River. And there's no numeric criteria for those pollutants. So those are 2. Algae is becoming a big problem, the blue-green algae. So I think Friends of the Caw has their work cut out for them.